And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Welcome into RBLR Sports, where we begin the road to the 2021 championships for our Tampa Bay sports teams. We took the last 2 weeks to recap all that's happened here in Tampa Bay, but now it's time to turn that page. Now it's time to look to spring training getting started, already games being played, to move into the NHL already in full swing, and to talk about how the Bucs do better than their championship run and run it back for one more ring for the great one. As now we think about eyes focused on ring number 8 for Tom Brady. My name is Eureka, and with me on this week as we turn the page and we look towards the future for Tampa Bay are my 3 guys here. Musab, what is up? I'll start with you, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. Thanks for asking, Eureka. It's been a good week. Things are kind of getting back in the groove. We got a few Lightning games that have been happening. Rays season starting soon, and no matter whether it's the postseason or it's the regular season, my mind's always on football. So it's a good week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And speaking of football, one football just crazed maniac. Mikey, what is up, brother?
What is going on, my guys? Everything is good. Nowhere I'd rather be than sitting here chatting with you guys about some Tampa Bay sports. Happy to be here, man. It's also Girl Scout season, so I got my cookies over here, and I'm grubbing and eating, and I'm enjoying the season, man. So I'm excited to talk some sports with you guys, and let's get it.
Yeah, man, the only place in the world better than us talking this sports is the beach, and that is where my man Chris just came from the beach today. What is good, brother?
Oh, man. My legs are burned beyond repair, man. I was in a lot of pain at work today. So yesterday was a rough day at the beach, but, I had a good time, and, looking forward to talking some Lightning hockey.
There you go, man. Well, from the sun-drenched beach to the air-conditioned rink. Let's get started talking about our Bolts. Chris, man, can you give us a recap of since we last talked about our Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah, we've actually had 3 games since we last talked. We had Carolina, then we had 2 against Dallas. So we finally got to play that Stanley Cup rematch. Currently, we're on a 5-game win streak. We've outscored our opponents 10-1 over the past 3 games. So I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that right now. Last night, or I should say, actually, the first game against Dallas, we put up 5 goals, and the team looked really well all around. I mean, we didn't look like we had we skipped a beat. Stamkos had a goal. Cirelli came back that game with a great breakaway, backhand forehand, great shot, top shelf. Just Cirelli doing what he does. Palat had a goal, Point had a goal. The big rig Maroon in front of the net. He got a goal. He was out there. He was throwing fists. Maroon got in a fight that game. It was good to see. And then obviously, like I said, we had that series against Carolina. We ended up winning that 3-1 against them. McElhinney played the last game against them. McElhinney looked really well. He looked really good. A lot better than his other outing he had. He had 32 saves that game against Carolina. And then obviously last night we played the Stars in a little more low scoring game. Palat had that early goal, and then Gord finished it off with an empty netter. Overall, right now, man, we're sitting pretty at 15-4-1. We got 31 points. We're on top of the division right now, man. We're looking pretty good right now. So overall, the past 3 games we've looked really well. We've looked solid. Looked to be a little more in rhythm. I think not having these long breaks and these delays are really helping the team out. It looks like we're coming together right now. Our games played, or we're only sitting at 20, so we're still a little behind a couple teams, in the division. So obviously we'll get those makeup games in, and just looking really good the past couple games.
Yeah, and it's nice that we were able to get finally those 2 games against Dallas, and also kind of take care of Carolina in a pretty tough series. How do you think seeing Dallas finally and them playing us so well. I mean, I know the last game it was 2-0 with an empty netter, but so that's a 1-goal real difference in the game. These series have been chippy. There's been fighting, like you said. There's been some blood already spilled between these two teams, and it's only going to get tougher and tougher. So, what importance do you have on them being able to have a good outing against Carolina and Dallas in the last week?
Just overall, I think overall just a confidence booster, getting back into that rhythm, getting playing playing at a more consistent basis and like I said, you're only going to see the same teams all year. So I mean, this is the first time we've played Dallas since the Stanley Cup. So to win the first two against them, I think is huge in itself because it causes us to gain a lot of momentum going forward and it just shows that I mean really right now we're playing some just really, really, really good hockey overall. This is, I mean, and keep in mind this is all without Cooch. We've done Mitchell Stevens got hurt early on, so we had to do some line change in there. So I mean, even without him in there, he was supposed to be that guy that came in this year and was going to be more of a starting role this year for us. He'd been in and out last year and the year before, so with even with those injuries, and then obviously Sorelli got hurt and he's back now. We're still, I mean, to still be in first place right now and to be able to get the wins we are against the quality teams we're playing too. I mean, Dallas hasn't really been off to that good of a start this year. I know they've had a little rough stretch like we have with the delays and everything going on over there, but I mean, Carolina's, second in our division. They've still won 3 straight. So, they got 2 more games played than we do. But, I mean, anything right now counts. And, I'll take any win I can get and any points I can get right now.
Yeah, I think Dallas is. I know we had talked about this a couple weeks ago about like teams that their talent isn't showing up in the standings, right? I mean, but if you look at the Stars, they look like a team that only has a 1-goal differential, right? I mean, they play hard and tough, and them being delayed a few games. I mean, they're about 5 games away from games played from everyone else in the division.
Yeah,
so
they're sitting at 17, so that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, once that evens out, I mean, and 4 of their losses are overtime losses. So, the Lightning come around, and you're talking a goal differential of 32. That's insane. That's insane. They've only given up. There's 39 goals allowed now. Who would you say are the top performers or top reasons why we're doing so well top the standings?
Well, without a doubt, I got to give my number one to our octopus, our big cat. The man in net, Vasilevsky. Man, he just continues to just be phenomenal out there, man. I mean, his past 3 starts, he's had 73 saves total, no goals allowed, and 3 straight shutouts, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, one of those games was Carolina, and the other 2 were Dallas. So I mean, I mean, that's just crazy to think 73 saves, 3 straight shutouts in the NHL is I mean, that's tough. One's hard, but 3 in a row I mean, in a high scoring league that we're in, that's tough. I mean, he hasn't allowed a goal in 199 minutes and 23 seconds of ice time. His goals allowed is only 1.65. So I mean, you look at that, he's not even allowing 2 goals a game. I mean, that's not even a goal, a little over a goal and a half. I mean, that's the guy's just in and out, phenomenal every night, in and out. He plays hard. He wants to be out there. I mean, it's hard to take anything away from him. I think he's really on his way to another Vezina trophy. I mean,
yeah,
it's just looking that way, man. The way he's playing right now, it's just lights out. You're not going to get the puck past him if you're using a bowling ball,
Yeah, I was going to say, who are there any other goalies that you've been kind of eyeing that might even be anywhere close to his pace or his eventual Vezina that he's going to have?
No, I mean not that I've seen, not that I can even. I can't see how you could. Not, I mean, as of right now, you could say there's any goalie better in the league than him. I know the divisions are different now, and everything's like like I said, you're only playing those same teams, so we're not going to the West Coast. We're not really having to travel as far. So I'm sure there's some things that it's a little different this year, but it is what it is, and every team's got to deal with the same thing. We got to deal with what other teams are dealing with, the delays, the playing the same, teams in the division over and over and over, and making it almost feel like a playoff type type games, early in the season. So, I mean, there's been no one that I've seen that I think will even come close if he keeps this up. I mean, obviously, yeah, if there was some kind of like a huge downfall where he lost, 10 of 11 games and was allowing 5, 6 goals a game, but we know that's not going to happen. He might have a bad game here and there where obviously, yeah, he probably give up 4 or 5 goals. He might get pulled a game maybe once this season if that does happen. But other than that, I don't see anybody even coming close.
Now, I'm going to keep bringing this up until until Vasi breaks down or they maybe do something. But with Vasi doing just exceptionally well, are the Bolts going to keep riding the hot hand, or are at some point do you have to kind of force him off the ice and give McElhinney more ice time?
Nope, not at all.
I mean, yeah.
No. I mean, he's young. He wants to play. Like I said, he wants to be out there. I think Coop almost lets him kind of just, if he's feeling it, he's gonna let him play. I'm sure Coop tells him, hey man, you want to break or you need a game off here and there, you just let me know. And Vasi's a competitor. I don't think he's phased by too many games or getting tired. I don't think that has an effect on him at all.
Yeah, so far it's just been more and more is more, and the more he's in there, the better he's been.
Agreed.
So other than Vasi, who's another top star performer that you've seen over the last week?
So I'm gonna give it to the PK man. The penalty kill is number one in the league. We're at 88.7%. We've only allowed 8 goals so far. The last time we gave up a goal in the PK was against the Panthers on February 11th, which the Bolts lost 5-2. I mean that's phenomenal. Right there. The PK's come a really, really, really long way. Stamkos has been winning a lot of faceoffs in the power play, or the PK, I should say, when the other team's on the power play, which is huge because you're getting that draw in your zone. You winning those faceoffs, you're able to automatically boom, pass it back to Hedman or whoever's back there, McDonough, and then they can boom, get it down the ice, and then you can make that other team go out of the zone and restart their whole power play over. And that's really what it comes down to is clearing that puck out, getting it out, and keeping the legs fresh on the ice, making sure if you need to make that change, you can make that change, and not allowing those shots, and keeping the defense, keeping the defense and PK fresh. We got Sorelli out there who's really, really good on the PK. Gord's really chippy. You can see Gaudreau out there sometimes. Even Gaudreau has been playing really well as of lately as far as PK goes. So overall, the PK, I mean, that's to be number one in the league from where we've come from. I mean, I think at one point last year, we were almost dead last in the PK, if I'm not mistaken. I know we were high 20s at one point. So, I mean, the PK's come a long way. And if you have a good PK in this league, man, you can obviously see where it's carrying us to with this 5-game win streak. And pretty much we're sitting second in the NHL overall with 31 points, tied with the Hurricanes. The only other team above us is the Maple Leafs. So, and then come playoff time, we all know the Maple Leafs will choke anyway. So I'm not even worried about them. It's just what they do. So, I'm just focused on us, man. PK looks really well. They look really well, man. Really impressed.
Yeah. Now you were saying it's kind of continued to be one of those team efforts for the Lightning, especially in that first Dallas game. A guy like Pat Maroon getting to score a goal. What have you seen out of the defensemen so far?
I think the defense has played really well. They're really up on the forecheck. That's the way we like to play. Hedman gets up there. He created really good opportunities. McDonough's even in there. Sergachev had a goal. I mean, Sergachev's goal was really, really nice shot. Sergachev has that deke move that he always does, and he gets everyone on it, man. He pulls it back and goes back inside, and it's almost every single time he does that, it seems like the opposing team bites on it. That trade for him with Jonathan Drouin back a couple years ago, everyone was like, "Oh man, like we didn't want to trade Drouin away," but Drouin was an attitude. He was that kid. He was that kid in the locker room that we didn't want. We didn't want to put up with that cocky little attitude, and that trade has paid off tremendously. Sergachev's been great. He started off a little rough here and there, but he's come a long way. I mean, McDonough, Hedman, I mean, they've all really played really well. As long as Luke Schen's not on the ice, everything's good.
Yeah, did you have one other standout, or at least a player, it could be a good or a bad, that you've kind of been locked in?
Underperforming wise, I think so far I would just say Cal Foote. He's only had 3 shots over his past 3 games, only 3 hits over his past 3 games. His ice time's definitely been down against Dallas last night. He only had 7:41 of ice time compared to 12:28 the last game against Dallas, and then he had 10:22 against Carolina. So I think you're seeing a little, maybe Cooper's kind of. I'm thinking maybe Cooper's trying to let him, maybe he's trying to get into his head a little bit, and I expected. Maybe I had high expectations for him already, maybe it's the season just being the way it is this year. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's throwing him off. I don't know. He he looks kind of lost out there, but that could just be nerves. It could be nerves. He's still a young guy. He's still, he's had his goal, and it's just I hope to see better things from him. Really, as far as underperformer goes, it's hard for me to pick anybody else because the team's just played so well as of lately as a whole. So I mean, it's just I think he'll improve over time. That's just what I've seen so far is just a little bit of just here and there, just lackluster play. Expect a little more right now. Maybe I just got high expectations, but I think he's got plenty of time to learn the game and be a good defenseman.
Right. I think him and a guy like Russ Colton are definitely like more long plays down the road. But speaking of Ross, like, how do you think some of the other young guys, Colton being one of them, have been doing?
I think everyone's really stepped up. I know, like I said, with Stevens being out, there was a little rotation going on in there as far as like Jamel Smith got to play a game and Volkov's been in there and Colton got his first goal in his first start. So I think overall the young guys have fit in pretty well. They've played pretty well. Overall, man, I mean, like I said, it's really hard for me to pick anything negative about the Lightning right now as far as just overall performance. I guess the power play was there on a slump there for a little bit. I could bring that up. They're sitting right now at eighth in the NHL, so it's hard for me to really, when you're top 10 in anything, I'll take it. It's hard to sit here and say anything negative about being top 10 in a category. But I mean, I know the power play was struggling there for a little bit. They've gotten a couple goals back here and there. So, um, the face-off percentage really still isn't that great. We're sitting at 49%, which is 20th in the league. So I could definitely I would like to see that improve as well. But other than that, I mean, that's just nitpicking at things. So I think as a whole, the team's played well. The young guys have stepped up, and that's one thing the Lightning have always been good at is having those young guys that can come in there and play to our system. And I think Cooper's got a good system implemented for the team, and I think it all works out very well.
All right, and Chris, I think the last thing we'll ask you is like, what's next? What between now and the next time we talk? Us, of course, recording on a Wednesday night tonight. But by the next time we talk, what do you think the Lightning have done?
Well, let's see. We got a little mini series coming up here with Chicago as they say up there, Chicago. We'll be traveling there tomorrow, and then we got Chicago on. So you got Chicago tomorrow. We got Chicago Friday. We got Chicago on Sunday, and then Tuesday we play the Red Wings in Detroit for the first time this year. So Chicago's looked pretty solid this year overall. I mean, I kind of picked them earlier to kind of be that maybe fourth team that gets into the playoffs this year. They're sitting at 12-7. 4 losses in overtime. They got 28 points. They're only 3 points behind us. They're sitting at fourth place. The Bolts. I think we're 8-1 against the Blackhawks over the past 9 games. So I mean that should give you some confidence, going into that series. I'm not taking anything away from Chicago. I'm not going to take these games lightly. I know they're going to play us tough. I know it's going to be some hard hitting games, and there's a little no love lost between us and Chicago for sure that year of the Stanley Cup, and then obviously playing Detroit. Detroit. We're pretty good about beating Detroit. We usually own Detroit, so I hope that's a free 2 points, but nothing's free in the league. I also saw that Detroit will be having 750 fans in attendance for that game. So that'll be the first time that they have more. I think it said 250 they had in the beginning of the year from what I saw, and so now they're gonna have 750 fans at that game. So you never know. That might give them a little momentum to kind of go for that steal win. Steal one from us. So you just don't want to go in there thinking, Detroit's the bottom dwelling team. We're gonna walk all over these guys, especially coming after 3-game series against Chicago, which is going to be tough on its own. So, just one game at a time. Keep winning, keep playing good. And if the team keeps playing like this, I see us, like I said, I see us getting 30, 35 wins. Hopefully locking up the 1 seed, which I would love to have. But as long as we get into the playoffs, we get Cooch back. It should be all, everything should be good. And I'm hoping for, like I said, I'm hoping we can get that repeat on the cup. It'd be nice.
All right, man. Now the last thing I'll ask you is, does the shutout streak is it still intact by the next time we talk?
Oh man, man, that I wish, but that now if that's the case, that would be absolutely phenomenal. And Massey would be breaking records. He actually he did break a Lightning record for 3 straight shutouts. So that did take a franchise record. So congratulations to him. I wanted to mention that. I forgot about that,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, I mean, if he still has a shutout after four more games, man, we're looking at 7 in a row, which me and you both know that would be absolutely phenomenal.
They just give him the trophy at that point.
Yeah,
here you go, buddy.
Yeah, here you go. It's all yours.
That's why he was the number 1 star in the NHL of the entire week. And Chris, thank you for going through everything. Let's take a break, and when we come back, I'm gonna kind of go through. Spring training for the Rays is in full swing, and I've got a lot of questions about what we're looking for, what I'm looking for as I'm watching the box score every day, because there's basically a baseball game, which is awesome, every day for the next month. So let's take a break, and when we come back, let's talk some Rays baseball. Welcome back into RBLR Sports. We've talked about the Bolts, and we are going to talk about the Bucs in just a sec. But I think it's important with spring training already in full swing. We're already 4 games in as we record here on Wednesday night, to kind of take stock in where we are. One thing that's about spring training is that the wins and losses don't really matter. It's all about, 1, staying healthy, and 2, kind of seeing, if maybe some of these prospects can do well kind of in this simulated season that there is here, but also to see these new additions and the people that you've let go and the things that you've brought back in to see if they're really clicking, and you can kind of get, by the end of the month, by the end of spring training, we will know, okay, we know what the team is looking like right before opening day, but there's still a lot of time between now and then. So I wanted to go through kind of each position and talk about my big questions. And these are the things that I'm going to be looking for as we move through pretty much a game every day or every other day for the Rays. Now, since the World Series, where, of course, the Tampa Bay Rays were the American League champions, there's been a lot of changes, and then there always is with a team like the Rays, who are always trying to kind of be a team that is more than the sum of its parts. And we definitely got standout performances from guys that have been let go from other teams that we pick up late in the draft or undrafted and things like that. So how the Rays look starting right now since the World Series is, the big one is they traded away Blake Snell. So the one of the questions is going to be, how does a top prospect like Luis Patino look? How does Francisco Mejia, who's a catcher that we should see come mid-season, but maybe not in the beginning of the season? These are more long-term questions about when you get rid of the ace of your staff. Okay, what are you doing to change that? Now, they also let Charlie Morton walk away. That's another huge part of their rotation. He is playing one more year, and he'll do it in Atlanta. But they also let Hunter Renfroe walk. But 2 people they did bring in to I wouldn't say replace in terms of a 1-for-1 replacement, but they did bring in guys like Michael Wacha and Chris Archer. Right, that's a name we all know from a couple years ago. That we were kind of mad when the Rays traded him in the first place. But Michael Wacha and Chris Archer are both coming off of, they have very high expectations, especially when the Rays traded him a couple years ago. But now we're seeing that these guys kind of dropped off a cliff. Michael Wacha and Chris Archer both have had disappointing seasons, and now they're coming back to a Rays team. But I think they're being asked to do things a little differently. So my big questions, I'm going to start with that pitching staff. And then in that rotation, the first question is, can Michael Wacha get fixed here in Tampa? One thing about Tampa Bay Rays is we seem to be the place where all the misfit toys can come, and I don't know if it's rehabbing or finding a new way to throw, but the way that the staff and the training are able to kind of get every single little ounce of performance out of some of these guys has been just outstanding, and it's one reason why the Rays are at the bottom of the payroll but can get so much out of these guys. I'm thinking that Michael Wacha definitely has a little bit left in the tank. Coming from the St. Louis Cardinals organization, he left there kind of on a downswing. He was with the Mets, I believe, and again just kind of never really found that mojo. And maybe it's playing in New York, maybe it's going to another big market like that you will not have that distraction. You won't have any of that stuff playing at Tropicana Field. That's also the same question that I'll have about Chris Archer, is that can Chris Archer get back to that high level that he had in that first go around with the Rays? Famously, he was the opening day starter for 4 straight seasons, but now he doesn't have to be the ace. He doesn't have to be Blake Snell. The Rays are really just asking him to kind of be the middle of the rotation, where as long as he's reliable and he can get the ball in his hand every 5 days and stay healthy, which was a concern towards the end of his first go-around, that's really what they expect, is if you can just eat some innings and get close to where you were years ago, that's going to be another maybe buy low. They sold him high, they bought him back low, and hopefully they're going to get the Chris Archer of old. Also, the question mark is the rest of that rotation. We still have Tyler Glasnow, who was actually part of the Chris Archer trade years ago. And they do have Ryan Yarborough, who they found out, they brought him kind of out of the bullpen as a spot starter and an innings eater. And now I think he's really solidified himself as a kind of an better than above average, guy who you put in the 4th or 5th spot in your rotation. But the other question is, when does the young ace, the young guy, Patino, show up? When are there? I mean, he's a guy who has a lot of similarity to the Chris Archer that we're looking for. That guy, that guy who has got a screaming 90+ mile an hour fastball, needs to get his little control under, but he's got all the tools to be top of the rotation. When are the Rays going to give him that crack? Is it going to be in the middle of the season? Are they going to kind of give him the ball early? If there's an injury, if they're not really getting what they're looking for out of Archer and Wacha, when do they really pull the trigger on that kind of young gun sitting there? But one of the strengths, speaking of pitching, is that bullpen. Without a doubt, one of the reasons I think the Rays felt comfortable downgrading their rotation at the top end is that, like it or not, this team doesn't really allow those starting pitchers to go much longer than they have to. This isn't the team that you go 9 innings, complete game shutouts. So what they've done is they've kind of broken down that work into that bullpen. So is this year's bullpen going to continue to be as good as it has been? I mean, you have Diego Castillo, you have Pete Fairbanks, you have Ryan Thompson, and the huge question mark is Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson's a guy who was great in the regular season and bad in the postseason. I mean, if you just take a look at, in the regular season, he goes 19 games with a 0.55 ERA, only gives up 5 hits in those 19 games only gives up 1 home run and 3 walks and strikes out 26 people in the 16 innings that he pitched, okay? And he was, they don't really use, they use him in high leverage situations. So saves isn't a statistic that I think means a lot on the Rays, because a lot of guys get multiple opportunities to be the quote unquote closer, I guess. But they would put Nick Anderson in, they being Kevin Cash, put him in all the high leverage situations. Unfortunately, in the postseason, in about the same amount of innings pitched, his ERA skyrocketed to 5.52. He gave up 16 hits in the same span, triple the home runs, and 4 walks, and most of all, he gave up 3 doubles that were just at the wrong time. He's at the wrong place at the wrong time, and so, Nick Anderson, super reliable on one hand, but then when the lights got bright, he was now, of course, you're pitching to the best teams in the game in the postseason, but unfortunately, he did not come out the best. So, does that rattle him? Is he going to come back with a fierce year, or is it one of those things where you choked in the playoffs and now you never really get in between the ears straight? So that's one of my big questions for Nick Anderson. Switching from the mound to the field, the big question that we had coming out of the postseason was, where are the bats? Where are the bats? The Rays pretty much everywhere have good defenders, but there's still a lot of question marks about, can this compilation of parts and pieces do better than the payroll and the expectations say they should? The biggest question mark for me is at catcher. Mike Zunino is going to get the first crack at it, but this is a hole in the lineup. Mike Zunino is a dude who plays, he plays pretty good defense. It's kind of been waning, but the problem is when he has a bat in his hand, it's feast or famine. He has the power to hit a home run, but my guy, he strikes out 44% of the time. So when you're looking at that trade with Snell, you're bringing in a guy in Francisco Mejia who kind of fits that same profile of, he kind of lost favor. He was a top prospect with San Diego, but he kind of has been on the downturn, and mostly that's because his defense hasn't been the best over the last couple of years. But he is an upgrade with a bat in his hand, and that was almost always the case in the postseason, that when the Rays needed a hit, they just could not find him in some of the biggest situations. That's a similar story at first base. Last year, Ji-Man Choi and Yoshi Satsugo, very down from what we kind of needed out of the first base. Satsugo, of course, adjusting to life in America. And, of course, imagine coming from Japan to America and then COVID-19 happens. So it would have been difficult in the first place, but then now we've got this weird schedule, breaks in play, sort of living in the mini bubbles as you're going to and from cities. I'm hoping that all that off the field stuff, now that it's hopefully a little more adjusted or a little easier to go through, that we see Satsugo show why the Rays brought him over from Japan. Ji-Man Choi, what can you say about him other than he's a phenomenal highlight reel at first base? He's an amazing he's like a ballerina at first base with all these, he can dive and do the splits, and I mean, it's amazing. However, he doesn't have those same kind of numbers that you're looking for out of a first baseman. I mean, as much as it's awesome that he's really, really good at defense, it is one of those positions that you can kind of stick a dude that doesn't have the best range or speed or athleticism. You can stick him at first base because you just need him to mash 20 to 30 home runs and get some guys in. That's not Ji-Man Choi. He has hit homers in the past, but he's kind of slowly, year by year, dropped his numbers. Also at first base, you've got a Mike Brosseau. I mean, a rookie last year. He's kind of the left-handed pitcher killer off the bench. And that's a question is, if they're gonna look to Mike Brassow if G-Man Choi again isn't doing it at the plate? Are they going to give up some of that defensive prowess for a guy in Mike Brassow who hit a dinger multiple times off guys like Aroldis Chapman, to get the Rays to the World Series? So moving along, here's another guy, Brandon Lau, second baseman, had an amazing regular season. I mean, he led the team in home runs. He led the team in runs batted in, and he was, if you look at wins above replacement as a kind of a catch-all statistic, he led the team. He was, by all accounts, the best hitter on the team. But in the playoffs, he was invisible. I mean, he basically disappeared. So how's that going to look? A lot of these guys very young, and you still got a lot of potential for these guys. But, how is Lau going to bounce back? At short, same thing. Willie Adames. Okay, here's a guy, very young, great range at shortstop. But there's a phenom named Wander Franco that's right around the corner. Okay, and so his days might be limited. He might be a guy that gets traded, especially if they're ready to bring up Wander, who all he did was hit a moonshot the first pitch he saw earlier today. But, when are they going to pull the trigger on him? If Willie Adames can't really do what's expected at the plate, his days might be numbered there, man. In the outfield, the big name, the huge name, the name that we were all clamoring for, that is a guy named Randy Arozarena. And here's a question for you. Was that just a moment in time that will never be forgot? Or is this the dawning of a five-tool superstar? Randy Arozarena has the glove. He has the speed. And last year, he showed, in a short amount of time, he got COVID. He had to leave the team. He comes back, and he rakes at an amazing rate. And then all he did was set the record for most home runs in a postseason. Well, that power is the difference between him being good and him being great. Him being that superstar, that diamond in the rough that we were able to pluck out of the Cardinals organization, a guy that they gave up on, or at least they were down on, and they were able to have him as a throw-in a trade. Then the other question is Kevin Kiermaier. How long is Kevin Kiermaier going to be on the Tampa Bay Rays this year? Obviously, amazing defensively. I made the joke, he covers 2/3 of the world, right? He's like water. But this team can't afford a below average hitting at yet another position. Kevin Kiermaier's quick. He's got the glove, but he can't just be another good defensive player that sits at the bottom of the lineup. So with that, those are kind of my big questions going through all these all the positions. But I'll throw it to Chris. Is there a question that you have that maybe I didn't bring up?
No, I think my biggest question obviously is going to be the bats. I think someone's really got to step up this year. We can't just have that, that one guy that's, it's batting close to 300, and that's our best hitter. And it seems like we always have these guys that are hitting 220 and 230, and just it's either home run or die, and I really want to see some consistent bats because we know the pitching's there. Obviously, losing Morton and Snell is huge, but we still have the bullpen, and I still think we're going to be a really competitive team this year. So my biggest question, like I said, is are the bats going to show up this year? Who's going to be that next guy that steps up and leads this team in hitting? And I obviously Arozarena was phenomenal, but like you said, can he keep that up? Is that just a playoff thing? Is that going to roll into this year? Obviously I hope so. So yeah, I mean, just the bats really, man. We got to have some more consistent hitting. We got to stop leaving runners in scoring position. You can't afford to lose those games when you leave 10 guys on base. So that's probably pretty much it, man. I just pretty much want to see the bats show up this year and see some more consistency.
Yeah, Musab, any thoughts or questions that maybe I didn't cover?
Yeah, I guess the one question I have is, just based on what's been happening recently, and the fact that he received an invitation to the big league camp. What are you supposed to make out of Wander Franco? What are we supposed to do with this information that we have right now about him? And what exactly, maybe, perhaps, could we predict about his future with the Rays?
Yeah, I mean it's a huge question mark because he's one of those guys that, I mean, he's the top prospect in our organization, and that's an organization that carries a lot of weight right now. I mean, I think a lot of the GMs across the league are going to tell you that the Rays, that's one reason we stay competitive, is that we can pull these guys from other places, build them into something, and then either move them for more prospects or have them. We've seen the Carl Crawfords and the Longorias and, with Blake Snell and Chris Archer and all these guys now, that Wander Franco is a guy who, from everybody, says this is a can't miss guy. So, potential is just that until it's realized. And so he's got a lot of people saying he's the sure bet. He's a surefire thing. And that's why I'm just looking at a guy like Willie Adames, who is pretty talented in his own right. I mean, all these questions last year, they were all yeses, or at least the answer was good enough, and so now when I look at this roster, I go, it might be a thin line between us winning the division like we did for the first time in a very long time, and us ending up third or fourth behind the Red Sox, behind the Yankees, behind maybe even the Orioles, who are kind of up and coming, right? And then Toronto is another just crazy team that's like doing well. But like the with all of these, I'm hoping the questions are yes. I'm hoping that G-Man Choi and Mike Zunino somehow just like figure out how to put the bat to the ball. I'm hoping that Brandon Lau just had a blip in the offseason. I'm hoping that Nick Anderson just had a blip in the offseason. I'm hoping that we actually did find a superstar in Randy Rosarena, right? But as I look kind of in the first week so far, these first 4 games, it's still the same kind of story where the bats haven't shown up and the pitching has been pretty decent, right? Better than average. I mean, just pretty good. The first game against Atlanta, my guy Austin Meadows, he's a dude that he's another he's kind of a DH, but he can also play outfield. But he's a guy who they pretty much expect to be a good hitter. He's having a pretty good first 4 games. Against Atlanta, he had a 2 RBIs, 1 for 2. But everyone else kind of has just been getting the rust off, I guess, just kind of going. I mean, there hasn't been really that many breakout performances. Meadows had one against Atlanta. The other one on terms of hitting was Wander Franco, man. The guy you brought up is he homers on the first pitch he sees, and he gets another hit. He goes 2 for 3 on the day before they take him out, and he's showing that he might be ready to go right now, and that's definitely a question of like, when do you pull the trigger, man? Now the Rays might also keep him in the minors for a little bit. There is a minor league season this year. There wasn't last year. There will be a minor league season. It's one of those kind of salary kind of things you can do to keep a guy an extra year if you just keep him in the minors for, the first 30 days or what. There's a magic number that I don't remember, but there's a way that you can kind of extend his rookie year to next year as well. And it kind of you gain another year of low cost control of that player. And for the Rays, that's one of the tools that they've used to stay competitive. On the mound, though, so far in this limited run that we've seen, Tyler Glasnow got rocked. He had 3 strikeouts, but he also had 3 walks and gave up 2 runs in about 2 innings against Minnesota. Michael Waka has pitched one time. He went 1 inning. He had a strikeout. He also had a walk, but he didn't give up a run. And the same thing about Ryan Thompson. Ryan Thompson's another dude that we're going to look for a lot of innings out of him. And, he had a so-so performance against Boston. But that whole everyone in that game against Boston just kind of couldn't get the ball in the strike zone, or at least when it got hit, it went far, far away. But that's kind of what I have on the Rays right now. Is right now there's maybe not a lot of difference in that line between being very, very good or coming up a lot shorter than we did in the past. But if there's one thing I am confident in, is that this is a team that gets every little ounce out of their guys and isn't shy about doing things unconventionally or doing things to shake things up. They will absolutely find every little opportunity they can to innovate and to find a way to win baseball games. And at the end of the day, that's what they're trying to do. So we'll check in. It might be a little bit until we go really deep in a Rays season preview or something, but those are kind of the questions that I have written down and in the back of my mind that I'm going to be checking in on as we get towards opening day. So let's take a break, and when we get back, the main event of the evening, Mikey and Musab, we're going to go through position by position on the defense as we turn the page to ring number 8 for Tom Brady. Let's talk all of the defensive positions, and maybe we'll talk grades and who we think are the standouts, and maybe there might be some needs that we need to address. So let's get into that after the break. Welcome back into RBLR Sports. I said it was time for the main event of the evening. Mikey, Musab, let's talk 2021 Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. I think, without a doubt, as much as talked about, the great Tom Brady and all of those, we're going to get into the offense next week. There are a ton of questions and things that need to be answered about a lot of these guys who are restricted free agents and guys that, there's only so much money to go around for, the 50 plus players on the team. So let's go through kind of position by position, and let's talk about who our top performers are and kind of everyone else, and maybe where you have them ranked or graded, as well as if you see maybe a weak link or an upgradable piece. I mean, obviously we respect everybody that's on the team and everyone had a hand in that championship, but moving on, man, everyone gets more expensive, everyone gets a little older, and there's a whole crop of free agents and draft players that make it exciting, and it make it where it's the hardest sport. I think football is the hardest sport to repeat as a champion. Oh, yeah. So let's talk about the defensive line first. Mikey, who is your top performer on that defensive line?
Man, so defensive line, everything starts in the trenches for me, right? So this group is a very vital group to our defense, and is one of the main reasons the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have had a number one run defense in the last few years. If I had to pick a top performer on the defensive line, while he was healthy, my top pick would be Vita Vea. He is a man beast, a beast against the run, eats up blocks, which allows the outside guys to get after the quarterback, and he is a top-tier defensive lineman, nose tackle in the NFL. And, if I had to pick, it'd be Vita Vea, Dominican Sue, and Will Golston in that order.
Okay. Yeah, now, Musab, who is your kind of A-level top performer of the defensive line?
For me, when it comes to the defensive line, I'm going to have to go with Vita Vea as well when he was really healthy. And I say that just because he's super dominant, of the times. He was playing in the regular season. He was doing an absolutely phenomenal job. Unfortunately, with the injury that took him out for the most of the season, we weren't really sure to see how he would come back. But when he did come back, he did a great job. And game by game towards the Super Bowl, he was getting kind of a little more action in, getting more recognition, and I think overall he's done a phenomenal job. What I just really like about him is he is just an absolute beast. He sometimes he looks a little shorter than the other guys, but it's just his whole body, the fact that he is just one big machine. And the reason, while Mikey, what Mikey said is absolutely, I back him up on that, what he said about Vita Vea. But, something that I just really noticed special about Vita Vea was just the power he brings to the defensive line. And also, there's been times where, actually, one time that I can remember from the top of my head, I believe it was a Super Bowl or perhaps a Packers game, but I believe it was a Super Bowl where it was, they're about maybe a yard or two away from the end zone. They give it to Ronald Jones, and while Ronald Jones was kind of just supposed to maybe jump over something, who is standing there at fullback blocking for him to make sure he gets a touchdown? Mr. Vita Vea, the man who's been playing defensive line, nose tackle. Now they're putting him at fullback, and you don't see it that often, but when you do, there's a good reason for why he was there, and I mean, just what he can do. He can do the blocking, but he can also, shove some guys at the side and attack, the opponent, the opposing QB as well. So for that reason, I'm gonna say, had there been maybe 3 or 4 other games that he was participating in, I think it would be an easy kind of shoe in the bag win for Vita Vea to be our lineman of the year.
Now, obviously, I can't disagree with Vita Vea being the man. I mean, he's huge. Mikey, let's talk about everyone else though. The kind of the back, like how do you feel about the Raheem, Nunez Roaches and Steve McClendon and kind of the guys that these are guys who are upcoming free agents? Would you bring these guys back, or do you see them as guys we can maybe move on from?
I think Raheem Nunez Roaches, I think they call him Nacho. He filled in for Vita Vea very well. He didn't have quite the impact that Vita Vea is. I mean, Vita Vea is top-notch defensive lineman, but he didn't turn our defensive line into a liability or to a weakness. We still played strong. When it comes to bringing him back, it all depends on numbers and who we can get to replace him, right? Who are we gonna target in the draft? If we're talking about draft, if we can get someone young and athletic, maybe we have an option there. I think defense line is definitely an area that we need to add some depth to. Um, so those players that you just mentioned, I won't comment on too much. One player that you did not mention, Sue, he is defense lineman as well. He is also a free
Yeah.
agent. And he is also a top tier defense lineman and maybe the best number 93 defense lineman the Bucs have had in a long time. Comes with attitude. I love the way he played in Detroit. Love the way he played, throughout his entire career. He's just been a bully, man. And I love that about defensive players and defensive linemen specifically. So, Vita Vea, number one guy. All those backups, that board can get shuffled around as free agents become available, as the draft gets closer. But Ndamukong Suh is a guy that we got to keep an eye on, and I would love to be able to bring him back because him and Vita Vea seem like, one, they have a great relationship off the field, and two, and more importantly, they get shit rocking on the field as well. So definitely want to keep him.
Yeah, Musab, how do you feel? I mean, Sue is a restricted free agent, and some of the other guys that have been kind of in the background. How do you feel about those guys? And are there some people maybe you might see? Maybe we can get younger and cheaper.
Yes, and a little bit of no as well. I think all of those guys were our free agents, especially on the defensive side. Um, being like, and Ndamukong Suh and, people like Shaq Barrett. I mean, these kind of free agents, they bring value to the table. Um, and the thing with us winning the Super Bowl was this day was bound to come that there's gonna be some evident free agent on our team that we may or may not have to let go of. So I guess the thing is, now that we won a Super Bowl, just I guess maybe just nitpicking, who can we afford to let go?
Yeah.
And
Do you think Sue is one of those guys? Do you think Sue
I
is the guy
think
they can let go?
you know what? I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'd rather keep Sue and work my way. I don't know how to work it out right now, but from the top of my head, I would say keep Sue and try to get another young guy who can basically just become his apprentice. I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
We need the leadership. I think what I value the most when it comes to any team is having a few guys or having at least one or two guys who've seen it all, who have that that kind of that special experience. For example, like our GOAT quarterback Tom Brady does. What he's seen and the insight he gives to people, that's something valuable. So for that reason, I'm gonna say that I think we should keep Sue. Maybe get one other young guy, or maybe try to see how we can work out our backup defensive lineman. Maybe seeing, all right, well, if we need to anticipate that Sue is gonna leave soon, whether that be now or next year, how can we basically recover from it is the real question. So for that reason, I'm gonna say for Sue, we keep someone like him, and we kind of just play strategically and try to get a undervalued, kind of slept on defensive lineman from the draft.
Yeah, and I think too with free agency around the corner, you might have some guys that are going to ring chase and might take a little bit of a discount. One guy who is not going to take a discount, I think, is Shaquille Barrett. Mikey, let's talk outside linebackers. Who do you have as your top performer of the outside linebackers?
Man, those are some bad guys right there in outside linebacker group. I mean, I don't know how you rank them. Do you do JPP 1A and Jason Pierre-Paul 1B?
Mm.
You can flip it 1B 1A. I mean, these guys are studs. Absolute freak of nature, both of them. JPP, he has they both have two rings. JPP just comes with so much energy. Um, and Shaq Barrett just comes with so much technique and so many moves that he applies to the offensive lineman when he's in attack mode. If I had to pick one to keep right now, moving on to the future, who my number one guy would be, I'm gonna go with the unrestricted free agent Shaq Barrett.
Okay.
Just a year ago, he put up 19 sacks, and although he didn't put up those numbers this year, I think he had 8 sacks this year.
Yeah.
He was still a force. I think he applied the most pressures on quarterbacks all season. And I mean, he's an absolute monster, man, and he's gonna come at a very expensive price tag.
Yeah.
If we can work it out, I think he would be not only my number one outside linebacker on our team, but I think he might be my number one priority free agent wise on our team.
Yeah.
He's a difference maker. We haven't had a outside rush like him in a long time, and it's hard to say because JPP did have more sacks this year, not by a lot, but Shaq Barrett he's just a talent. I think he's coming into his own. He sat behind some very special players with the Denver Broncos, and now that he has his time to shine, I think he's making the most of it. And I would really like to ride that hot hand and ride him out into the future.
Yeah, Musab, man, JPP and Shaq Barrett, what a duo. Who would you say is your top performer out of all those?
Out of those, I'm gonna say Shaq Barrett because the reason is he's been really special, especially that 2019 season. The Bucs took a chance on Barrett before the 2019 season started after he spent years kind of as like a rotational edge rusher in the Denver Broncos defense, and the chance that he got absolutely paid off in a big way through 2 seasons. Now, he's had 157 quarterback pressures since the start of the 2019 season, which is more than any other edge defender in the NFL. And there's only one person who has more sacks than him at that position, and that's this TJ Watt. But other than that, I mean, he's second right there. So for that reason, I mean, it's kind of very crucial to try to keep him to the best of our ability, because that guy brings a lot of value to the table, no matter where he goes. Um, he's had 2 great seasons. He's coming off a Super Bowl win. Um, Even his postseason performance basically kind of just put a whole statement. I mean, we're playing the best teams, the Saints, Packers, Chiefs, and against all those 3 teams, especially in the postseason, he did a phenomenal job. Just super dominant, working with his other teammates as well, kind of, bullying the other quarterbacks that we went against. So for that reason, I'm gonna say, he's definitely my number one guy that I want to do everything to keep him.
Yeah, I agree, and one of the main reasons is that if you don't have Shaquille Barrett, now you're asking guys like Anthony Nelson and Cam Gill, who fortunately didn't have to make that much of an impact this year because Jpp and Shaq were in there the whole season, but you're asking a lot. That's no disrespect to Anthony Nelson and Cam Gill, but that's kind of a drop off. Musab, what do you think? There's any chance that maybe they try to, or if they're not able to come to an agreement with Shaq Barrett, he might want the moon and the stars. Is there maybe would they keep the young guys and maybe next man up, or is that a position they'd maybe go try to fill with a free agent?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm gonna say, you know what, take a little risk with it. I'm gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of, let the next guy up get that shot. If Barrett is to go somewhere else, um, because as much as I would like to keep everyone, some people unfortunately may have to go, and there's gonna be a little rebuilding process. But I mean, that's with every championship team. It's always all that pressure is on you, thinking, all right, well, how do we make sure we even play better than last year, while working with what we have. So I think that's just something to really think about. Is right now we don't know exactly yet what we have, what we're working with for next season. That's a thing. Sooner or later we'll find out. But as of right now, I'm gonna say, prepare for people not to sign with us because for various reasons. So at least for now, I would prepare having a backup game plan to say, well, if Barrett and or other guys go, how are we gonna recover from this? What is our game plan? Where exactly do we definitely need to maybe get another free agent? And where can we maybe be a little more strategic about it and perhaps draft someone slash maybe give some backup guy more recognition?
Yeah, Mikey, am I just disrespecting the names of of Anthony Nelson and Cam Gill? I mean, if on the stat record this year, they had less than 20 tackles combined, a couple sacks between the two of them, some quarterback hits, but am I disrespecting these guys, or am I missing
No,
out on
man, no.
something?
I mean, you gotta show and prove. You know what I mean? They haven't necessarily had the opportunities to show themselves, and make those big plays and get into a rhythm. But I don't think you're disrespecting them because the fact of the matter is that Shaq Barrett, JPP bring that type of value, man. So you got to earn it. You got to beat those guys out in practice. When your time comes in games to shine and get those reps and make those plays and those tackles or those sacks, you got to get it done. And they haven't thus far. So no disrespect.
No.
I don't see any disrespect at all.
Now, another group that stepped up to the plate. I mean, I know all of us, we were saying these are the question marks. The one weak link in this whole defense is that secondary. Mikey, let's start with corners. Who was your top performer in the cornerbacks this year?
Top performer for cornerbacks is my boy Carlton Davis. All season. I mean, playoffs. I mean, if we could differentiate regular season with the playoffs, I mean, I'd have two different choices. I think.
Okay.
Because in the playoffs, Sean Murphy Bunting, he stepped his game up and he made some clutch interceptions. But overall, this season and prior seasons, I've been a big fan of Carlton Davis. He is a long, big cornerback who plays great against a press coverage. I love the way he comes up and lays guys out and tackles, a sure tackler. Um, he's a monster, man, and I think he has a bright future. I really got to say that I am impressed with Jason Light and his drafting and what he's done thus far with our team. It took a few years, but he's got us to the right point.
Right.
And all these guys are young, right? Like Carlton Davis is what, 3 years in the game.
Right.
Sean Murphy Bunting, 2 years in the game. Dean, 2 years in the game. Like these are young guys, which is great for now and is great for the future because they're going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to get better. Now they have playoff and Super Bowl experience. So I think our secondary, although the beginning of the season this was our biggest question mark, I think this has turned into and going into the future will be a strength. They started off the season hot. They got a little bit cold, went through a little drought, and then picked it back up at the right time, man. So they're no longer a weakness of our team, I would say. And out of those guys, Carlton Davis is my guy.
Musab, man, talk to me. What's your top performer in the cornerbacks?
Ooh, my top performer when it comes to the cornerbacks, I'm gonna say Murphy Bunting. And the reason why I say Murphy Bunting is, he's had his ups and downs, throughout the whole kind of season. You'd seen him do a little bit of everything, and sometimes, he wouldn't look like the Sean Murphy Bunting we were expecting. But, Murphy Bunting's 3 recent interceptions, in the postseason, one in each of those Buccaneers 3 postseason games, kind of might be, front of mind. He was the player who teams opted to pick on in the secondary for much of the season. So on one hand, those 800, receiving yards that he allowed in coverage were the 6th most in the NFL this season. And yes, he did make a few plays on the ball to make up for those coverage lapses, but in the regular season, he only had 1 interception and 2 forced incompletions, which doesn't really say too much. But I just think that for kind of the experience he's had so far and the opportunities he has had, I think he's done a great job. I think I would put Carlton Davis right behind him. I honestly think it's really neck and neck. But the reason why I just chose Sean Murphy Bunting was kind of just how he kind of just really, really stepped it up in the postseason. I don't know exactly what the specific reason for that was. However, the fact that he just really turned on that turbo and went off in the postseason kind of really shows you something. He really came through on some key interceptions that kind of changed the whole game dynamic against our opponents. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with Sean Murphy Bunting just because I see a lot of potential for him. I think he's got a really high ceiling, and I just think that year by year he's gonna be improving. And I would say by next season or the season after that, I think he's gonna be kind of one of those secondary leaders on our team if he is to stay.
Yeah. Now, one thing that's important that we talked about, Light having just such a great ability to find these guys. I mean, you look at Carlton Davis, second rounder, Jamel Dean, third rounder, Sean Murphy Bunting, second rounder, right? And the list goes on and on. Mike, you talk to me about other than Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy Bunting, kind of everyone else. Where do you kind of rank everyone else on the cornerbacks?
Yeah, man. I mean, who else do we got? We got Jamel Dean, Ryan Smith. I think Jamel Dean is a very promising cornerback as well. Um, if I had to give him a grade, it'd probably be a C plus, B minus, somewhere in that range. He has showed a lot of promise in past seasons. Last season, I think his rookie season, he showed great promise in a 4 or 5 game stretch. Um, and then he kind of fell off the cliff a little bit. This year, kind of the same thing. He's had some games where he's covered some big time receivers, held them to low yardage. And then he's had games where he felt I felt like we were a little bit exposed. There's a 2 or 3 games in there where I was like, man, please do not throw it to Jamel Dean's direction because he wasn't looking like he was too sharp.
Mm.
But again, man, it's his second year. You know what I mean? He's a young kid. He's got potential. He's shown that he can play at a high level. He just has to do it more consistently. And seasons like this, where you have a big a big season with um, you know challenges like you go up against the New Orleans Saints, you go up against the Green Bay Packers, you go up against Kansas City Chiefs, and you dominate. Those are confidence builders that moving into the future, man, you're only going to get better. And with the coaching staff we have, I'm super confident. So Jamel Dean, I have a lot of high hopes for. I think he's going to be a solid cornerback for us for the next few years. And that's where my recognition with them, ends right there. I mean, it's those guys. Ryan Smith, he's a solid special teamer. Um, as a outside corner, a slot corner, I don't see him as valuable as the other guys that we mentioned before. And Cockrell, I really nothing stands out from the tape. The eye test. I don't see anything um, special from from him so far. But that's not to say if his opportunity doesn't come up that he won't show up. Just as of right now, those other guys, Carlton Davis, Bunting, and Dean, those are the main guys in that corner position that I have high hopes for in the future.
Yeah, and all three of those guys, the main core, that starting unit of the corners, they're all coming back. They're all still under contract. Musab, do you see them just kind of running it back like that, or maybe do they go out and get maybe a veteran presence for this young secondary?
Ooh, I think they'll make an attempt to at least get some kind of veteran presence in the secondary. I think what we got right now is satisfactory. Obviously, there are a few kind of things that are missing from the equation. However, I think there will be an attempt, or hopefully, if if it was my job, I would try to make some attempt to try to get some kind of veteran experience. Maybe try to get someone who's pretty solid, at least pretty solid in the position as well to guide these young guys. Because I just think that the thing that might be lacking, especially with all these kind of young heads in our secondary, is I guess maybe just understanding the importance of team chemistry when it comes to all these secondary positions working together. I think that's of those times where we've kind of struggled against wide receivers and tight ends, with stuff like that, especially when it comes to coverage. I think that's where that kind of blame falls in, is understanding, how can we work together, meaning how can the secondary work together, and then also kind of how can we pick up on signals or signs that we need to make some changes while the game is going on. I think those are just some things that you learn with experience. So for that reason, I would expect that the Bucs make some attempt to get some guy who's had at least a few years of experience under his hand. But ideally, someone who's you could probably call a vet would be nice to add onto this Bucs roster.
Yeah, and Mike, you brought up a good point that like these guys have kind of gone through the fire. They've been up and down, and maybe the question is going to be: do we bring in some guy with experience, or do we trust that this experience, them being in this fire and turning it on in the playoffs at the biggest time, maybe that does make them blossom and grow. That pressure creates diamonds, right? Let's move on to safeties, Mikey. This is another area where there's some good players here, man. Who is your top safety?
This defense gets me excited, man. You ask me these questions, and it's just so hard for me to pick one person, like one player in particular. It's just tough, man, because every department has just ballers, man. So we go to the safety. Who can, it's 1A and 1B, right? Who am I gonna put first? So, Whitehead was just cracking skulls all freaking year, man. And he stood out to me a lot. Winfield Jr., our rookie safety, he made play after play, man, and some of the most memorable plays in Buccaneer franchise history, man, forcing a fumble, a tip pass in the back of the end zone against the Falcons that looked like it was going to be a touchdown, but he popped up out of nowhere. I mean, this is a tough choice, but if I had to pick one player in the safety, one player, one of those safeties to choose as my top guy, I think it would be Winfield.
Okay.
Granted, he is a rookie, and he has a lot of room to grow, but so much promise, so much talent. The guy balled out all year long. Should have been a defensive rookie of the year. Came up with important tips, important forced fumbles at important times throughout the season. And, man, we have a bright future with him. And I don't think we have to worry about drafting safeties for a while or, getting free agent safeties for a while. I mean, safety position is pretty locked in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, there's no wrong answer. Musab, who would you say is your top safety?
My top safety, and I definitely, again, I agree with Mikey. It's that 1A or 1B. But for me, just based on kind of looking at the overall picture, I'm going to have to say Antoine Winfield. Winfield, along with Tristan Wirfs, he looks like a cornerstone piece of the Buccaneers 2020 draft class. He kind of flashed up with a well-rounded game as a rookie, with him contributing when it came to coverage, that run defense, as well as occasionally kind of some pass rushing Tampa Bay blitz heavy scheme. He was participating in that as well. Overall among safeties, I mean, he had, throughout the season, I mean, his run defense grade was amazing at the top. He picked up 9 pressures as well, just on, 50 snaps. So, while he wasn't some super remarkable, dominant safety, the fact that, he's performing like this as a rookie and he's making his name, and even those kind of those small things where like the last one of those last few plays of the Super Bowl where he's kind of throwing that little deuces sign up to Tyreek Hill. These are the kind of things that already that give me the vibe that this guy's the real deal. When you see those kind of things and you kind of forget, wow, like this guy's only a rookie and he's getting into people's heads. He's doing overall a great job at his position. So for that reason, I'm gonna say my safety award definitely goes to Antoine Winfield just with what he's already brought to the table, and I think from here on out, year by year, he's just gonna get better and better, and I just pray that he never gets injured or never hurts himself, because I just think that the more he plays, the higher his value will become. and it will just be really costly if we lose a guy like him in the future.
Yeah, no, Mikey hit it right on the head, man. It's like every position you just have an embarrassment of riches this year. But there are some questions, and so Mikey, I'll ask you for all the greatness and all the good things, what would you say are the top needs for this defense?
Top needs for this defense would be, in my opinion, adding depth to the defensive line, um, and adding depth to the cornerback position. These guys are young, but something goes wrong. Who's up next? Next man up.
Mm.
I think I think we have, the safeties are solid. We didn't cover the linebackers yet, but the linebackers maybe our most fierce and dynamic position on the defense.
Yeah, yeah.
We're good there. Defensive line, I think it would be my main focus when it comes to improving in 2021. Vita Vea's already showed that he's somewhat injury prone. How do we, cover that if he were to go down again? JPP may leave in free agency, or I'm sorry, Shaq Barrett may leave in free agency. Who would we put there? So I think we need to add depth to the defensive line, make sure that we are covered there, that we have young, talented players on the line, and you know, Musab, hit it on the head earlier. I would pursue a veteran presence in the cornerback position, someone who's chasing a ring, maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, um, as a security blanket, kind of like what we had with Brown on the offense, or with our running backs on the offense. A security blanket just in case something does go wrong injury wise or confidence wise. So my two positions that I would cover would be defensive line and cornerback.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about linebackers as kind of the
Okay,
dessert, the
that's what I
cherry on the
thought. That's what I
top here.
thought.
So no, oh no, yeah, we'll get to. But Saab, I'll ask you the same question here. What are the top needs that you see for this defense?
Yeah, top needs I see are, definitely looking at the D line, looking at either like a defensive end or maybe just another D line. Um, yeah, I'm not worried about the linebackers, but also looking at maybe a safety. My first priority though is definitely looking at a D line, and then after that I'm gonna say a safety. Those are my two big needs. Just because I think the offense, I think moves. Something's gonna happen on the offense. In the off season, I can't really exactly precisely predict it right now or kind of really put a hot take. Some things are going to be going on, but what I do know for sure is, when it comes to our defense, we really do need we need a big bodied, edge rusher who can move well in space. Um, you know, Especially if pending free agent Shaq Barrett finds a new address, or if any of our guys find a new address, we're gonna need to pick up on that. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to say I'm looking at an edge rusher, and then after that, I would just say maybe like a defensive tackle as well. Those are my two big things, because the way I see it, I just think it's gonna be a little harder for us to um, recover from any loss that happens from our defense due to free agency compared to the offense. So for that reason, yeah, my priorities are looking at someone on the D line, whether that be an edge rusher or a tackle. And then after that, yeah, looking at, all right, well, who's left? Maybe could we afford, maybe looking at, okay, well, maybe should we snag someone from the draft and risk it when it comes to our secondary, or maybe play a little smart, maybe get like a solid, hopefully trustworthy backup player, whether that be in the offense and defense, and then kind of, as you mentioned before, Eureka, kind of go on the hunt for some veteran experience, and attain someone who plays safety or cornerback. that can be a good leader for our young secondary unit.
Yeah, Mikey, the last thing, let's the cherry on top, and I left this for last because I'm just going to go ahead
They're
and say
bad.
it. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Devin White was should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And between Devin White and kind of what we were talking about is having this young dynamic player alongside a veteran like Levante David. That was really what, to me, the straw that stirred the drink for this defense. And so, Mikey, who is your top performer for the inside linebackers?
Here we go again, man. 1A and 1B. I don't know who to prefer. Listen. Devin White, Levante David are arguably the best linebacker pair in the entire National Football League. These guys are unreal, man. Devin White had 140 combo tackles, 97 solo tackles, 15 tackle for losses, 16 QB hits, and 9 sacks. Devin White's the man. I mean, he is the future of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and I have a lot of respect, a lot of love, admiration for Levante David. I call him King David. He's been a beast for a long time with us, and I really, really hope that we can keep him and that he retires a Buccaneer, which is very rare in today's NFL. But these two guys are beasts, man, and them together, sideline to sideline, making tackles, interceptions. I mean, it's tough, man. Devin White would be my main guy. But that's not to say, that's not any disrespect to Levante David, because he puts up numbers as well, and these guys are the heart and soul of the defense.
Musab, give me your top inside linebacker, man.
My top inside linebacker easily has to go. Well, again, a little bit of 1A, 1B, but then again, he's been my favorite guy to watch all season, and that is Mr. Devin White. Just to start with his strengths, I mean, he has, the kind of athleticism and side-to-side line ability that teams, covet at the linebacker position, and it is a big part of what makes him one of the best blitzing threats in the league. And while I wouldn't say he's, the ultimate, godly, perfect linebacker, he's just been an absolute kind of bully on the field. And, you got to remember this guy, this is his only second year. He's got that captain patch, which ought to say something to you. Excuse me. And that's really about it. I mean, his performance throughout the whole season, especially in the postseason, you could see it, in the game that he wasn't there. It's there's something that's missing in the Bucs defensive puzzle when Devin White is sitting out, and when he's back in, you can immediately pick up on it again. That okay, well, that's okay. So that's why Devin White's important. Or okay, yep. That's that's the guy that tackled him. Well, I'm not surprised that was Devin White. I mean, just everything he does, he's got that basically. He's he reminds me of like a typical running back mixed in with a bulldog. He's got that that tank body, and he's just always after someone. He's always getting up in their faces after the tackle, before the tackle. It doesn't matter what size you are. He's coming after you, and everything else he does as well. With the fumble recoveries, the interceptions, he's doing a little bit of everything. So for that reason, I just think that if I was anyone on the opponent side, whether I'm a tight end, quarterback, running back, anyone, my number one worry on the Bucs defense would easily be Devin White. That's where my eyes would be on. Is is this guy coming after me, or where's this guy going? Can he read my plays? To me, my eyes are always on him when I watch the game, because there's always this feeling that goes on inside my body that Devin White's about to make something, something special happen.
Oh yeah.
Mikey, do you think that inside linebacker room is going to look a lot different, being that there's 3 out of the 5 guys are possible free agents that might leave? Kevin Mitner, kind of being the big backup. Do you think this is a different looking linebacker crew this year?
Midner had some splashes this year while Devin
Mm-hmm.
White was out. He made a few plays. I think they're gonna keep this group together, man. To be honest, I think that we have a good thing going with Devin White, Levante David, and I don't think Jason Light wants to mess that up, man. So I think they're gonna keep it together. I hope they do. At least another 2 or 3 years. Devin White and Levante David should be side by
Crazy.
side.
Musab, what does this linebacking crew look like? Is it they running back one more time or something different?
I think it may be a little bit different. My anticipations is not going to be the exact same. I think it might be a little bit different. I think it's going to be. Hopefully, we keep some good guys, and we can just make the best out of it. I think I would just say is, I guess this would kind of be. I guess overall with all these positions, I guess what I'm really trying to say is I think there's gonna be a lot of important behind the scenes strategy that should be going on and / planning as well, because it's football, so injuries happen, and my big worry the more I invest myself inside, with the Buccaneers, is thinking, all right, well, if any of our stars go down, are we still a star team? Are we still a really good team? So, I guess it really just comes down to, all right, well, who can we kind of, you know, take our risks on, and who can we not take our risks on? So for that reason, I'm just gonna say it's gonna be a little bit different. I don't think completely different or the exact same. I think it's gonna be a little different, but I just think that um, I don't think it's gonna be anything that needs to be a worry. But I do think that there's gonna be. I think that there's whoever the backups turn out to be. I think that their role will increase a little bit more if Levante David or Shaq, aka Shaq Barrett, leave our team. I think that someone's role is gonna be a little more. You know, I think someone's gonna get a little bigger role / responsibility. But I don't think it's a worry. I just think that it's just gonna be something that we're gonna have to see how it works out. In our first few games, and just pray for the best, really.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the offense next week, but just taking a look here, if you pull up kind of the expected Buccaneers cap space, they've really got about $24 million. And unfortunately, guys like Shaq Barrett probably could command pretty close to that by himself.
24 million.
Like Shaq Barrett
give it all
might
to
get
Shaq.
the lion's share of that, man. But so you talk about Levante David and you talk about Ndamukong Suh, they're not too far behind, and they're going to be around that kind of 10 to 12 million a piece there. So we'll talk offense next week because there's 2 guys, Tom Brady and Mike Evans, that are taking up almost 20% of the cap, that maybe there's a little bit of voodoo magic that they're going to have to come up with to find some extra money to keep this defense together. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of questions that we brought up, and there's a lot of positions that you might see younger, cheaper draft picks coming in on the backside of that roster, because everyone who's a starting person on this defense, I think they have a pretty big case that we should just run this back, because it, like Mikey said, it's one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL history, and definitely for the Bucs, there's been maybe one defense that could hold a candle to it. So I thought this was pretty fun to kind of turn the page and talk about where we're at right now, and all the little moves that we're going to have to do. So I can't wait to hear Musab and Mikey's thoughts about the offense next week. So for that, I guess Chris, if you haven't fall asleep over there, man, or watching Bolts highlights, give us something before we get out of here, man. Any final thoughts about anything in Tampa Bay this week?
No, man, just kind of glad hockey's getting back to its, full swing of scheduling, and like I said, just keep hoping for no more delays each week, and glad to see the Rays back out in the field, and hopefully, I'm hoping to get that World Series this year, man. It'd be really nice to add that to the Tampa Bay, title reign. That's really all we're missing, and just enjoying sports right now, and just really enjoying all the titles we've won. This is history for us. So I mean, it's been a really good year overall, despite everything else going on in Tampa. So just enjoying it day by day, and looking forward to 2021.
Absolutely, Mikey. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, man. My last thoughts would be, no matter what happens, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense is pretty well diversified, right?
Yeah.
If we lose something on the offense or the defensive line, we still got the linebackers, the cornerbacks, and the safeties.
Yeah.
And if we lose something, if we lose Levante and the linebacker, we still got the defensive line and the cornerback.
Right.
So we're gonna be okay,
Right.
man. We're gonna run it back for a repeat.
Right. Musab, final thoughts for you before we get out of here, buddy?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of what Mikey said, I think this upcoming season for all of our teams, but I guess since I'm a little more biased towards our Bucs, specifically our Bucs, I think it's gonna be another great season. Regardless of who stays and who leaves, I think I'm still gonna be proud of every single one of them. And for all those new guys who come on our team, I'm not that worried, because whether I'm a free agent or I just got drafted by the Buccaneers, the fact that I'm playing on a championship team, that gives me enough motivation to make sure I do my job well. It kind of brings a little competition within the team. So for that reason, I'm not worried at all. I'm not stressing. I trust our Bucs management. They've been making, they made some good moves in the past. So I don't think that we're gonna make any, careless moves or signings this off season / this upcoming season as well. With any teams, but specifically the Bucs. And I just really hope that it is one fantastic year for our Tampa Bay sports teams, and that's really about it. And to our listeners, as always, thanks for always giving us a listen.
Absolutely, guys, and let's not bury the lead. This championship team that we've assembled, Chris, Mikey, Musab, another great show in the books, and not to leave out you, the listener. You are part of this championship team, and what you can do to help us is follow us on all forms of social media. We are at RBLR on Instagram. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We are everywhere. We're in a bathroom stall somewhere at USF. You can you can subscribe, you can follow us on all of those platforms. If you're listening to us on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts, if you're on Stitcher, Spotify, you name it, subscribe, review. It helps us. It helps us spread the word. It helps find other dedicated Tampa Bay sports fans who are loving all the stuff that we're doing for you. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy, and I can't wait to wrap this all up and do this next week and talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense and how does Tom Brady and the crew get it all figured out. How does Jason Light put it all together so that we have another amazing offense? So for all the boys, let's say goodnight, and we will see you guys next week with another rundown of your Lightning, your Rays, and your Buccaneers. Have a great night, guys.
Adios, everyone.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.